When my daughter-in-law looked at my empty plate on the first evening of Ramadan and said, "In this house, everyone serves themselves," I felt something inside me go still. It was not anger first. It was a silence, like the hush after the adhan when you hold your breath and wait for the first sip of water. I looked at the bowl of lentil soup on the counter, steaming and golden. I looked at my hands, which sometimes shake. My joints were stiff from fasting. My mouth was dry. The only sound in the room was the clock and the little boiling sound from the kettle. My son, Imran, sat at the table. He was tapping on his phone and glancing at the TV where a gentle Ramadan show was playing. He did not look at me. My grandson, little Zaid, was swinging his legs under the chair, a date in his hand and a smile on his face. "Daddy, we can eat," he whispered, like it was a secret. I smiled at him and nodded. "Bismillah," I said. I stood and took a step toward the counter. The floor felt far away. The bowl looked heavy. Samira, my daughter-in-law, crossed her arms. "Please," she added, her voice flat. "We talked about independence. It's better for you to do things on your own." She walked past me and placed a fork near her plate, straight and neat, as if it mattered more than my trembling hands. I reached for the soup. My fingers slipped for a second. The ladle clinked against the pot. A small splash landed on the stove. "Careful," Samira said sharply, as if I were a child. I swallowed, took a breath, and kept going. I did not look at Imran. If I looked, I might cry, and I had promised myself I would not cry in this house during Ramadan. I carried the bowl back to the table, step by slow step, the soup trembling like my heart. I placed it down and forced a smile. "Alhamdulillah," I said, in a voice that sounded older than me. I broke my fast with a date and a sip of water. The sweetness felt like a mercy. I felt the tears in my eyes, but I blinked them away. I told myself, "Sabr, Safiya. Sabr. Allah sees. Allah knows." That evening, when the dishes were done and the house was quiet, I sat by the window in the dark and listened to the city. Far away, someone recited Quran in a soft voice. I closed my eyes and pressed my hands together in my lap. That moment at the table was not the worst thing that would happen. It was only the first crack. I wish I could tell you I was brave. I was not. I was just a mother who did not want to lose her son. If stories like this bring you comfort, please follow Voices of Fatima, like this video, and share it with someone who might need it. Your support keeps these stories alive. Have you ever had to smile instead of crying, just to keep peace at home? Which country are you watching from? Share it below. My name is Safiya. I am 68 years old. My knees ache in the morning, and my hands feel stiff on cold days. But I can still make a good cup of tea, and I can still tell a story the way my mother taught me, slow, true, and with a prayer at the end. I used to live in a small house with a jasmine plant outside the door. The neighbor's cat used to nap on the wall, and the call to prayer from the mosque came through our kitchen window like sunlight. My husband, Salim, passed away 3 years ago. After that, the house became too quiet, and the jasmine grew wild, like it needed his voice to stay neat. Imran is my youngest child and my only son. When he was little, he used to sleep with his cheek on my arm. He had a habit of asking many questions at night, just when I was most tired. "Ami, where does the moon sleep? Ami, if I say sorry to Allah, does he hear me if I whisper?" I would kiss his forehead and say, "Allah hears a whisper, a breath, even a tear. Go to sleep, my moon." I still remember his smell after school, chalk, dust, and the sweetness of a biscuit. He grew up tall and quiet, like his father. He studied hard, got a job in the city, and told me one day, with his shy smile, "Ami, I want to marry Samira. She is kind and smart." The first time I met Samira, she wore a simple scarf and a blue dress. She was soft-spoken and polite. She said, "Auntie, I work long hours, but I will try to be a good wife." I liked her. I told her, "A home is not made by a wife alone. It is made by two hearts, and Allah's mercy. You will be fine." She smiled, but her eyes moved quickly around my old living room like she was measuring it. I noticed the tiny things because I am a mother. We always notice. 2 years after their marriage, they moved into a new apartment. It was high up on the 8th floor. The building was all glass and steel, with a lobby that smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet money. They invited me to stay for a while, then longer, then permanently after my fall. I had slipped on the kitchen floor at my old house while reaching for the spice tin. It was not dramatic, just a small slip. But the doctor said, "You should not live alone," Imran said. "Ami, come to us. We will take care of you." When I first entered their apartment, it felt like a hotel. The walls were white, the furniture was gray. Everything had a place, and every place had a label. Samira had neat handwriting on small stickers: cumin, turmeric, coriander. She had labeled the tea jars and even the shelf with dates. "It helps me keep order," she explained. I nodded. I thought, order is good, but a home also needs softness. I kept that to myself. I did not want to be the kind of mother-in-law who corrects everything. My own mother-in-law raised me with a strict kindness that took me years to understand. She used to say, "Safia, use your tongue to bless the house, not to control it." I had promised myself I would be gentle with Samira. At first, we were gentle with each other. I woke early for Fajr, made tea, and prayed by the window. The light would come slowly, the city waking under it like a child. I would recite a few pages of Quran, the same verses I had read since I was a girl. I would count my tasbih and whisper the names of my children, my husband, my old neighbors. I would ask Allah to keep everyone safe, to soften the hearts in our home, to forgive my tiredness. I would place 1 cup of tea on the table for Imran, cinnamon if I had it, because he liked it that way. I would leave a note under his cup: "Remember your duhur prayer." He would smile at the note and kiss my head before leaving for work. Samira worked from home. She had calls and meetings, and her laptop never slept. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were always on the screen. I tried to stay out of the way. I would fold laundry in the bedroom, hum an old song under my breath, and water the little plant on the balcony. I kept a small prayer mat rolled up near the couch for quick prayers. I told myself, this is their house. I am a guest who is also family. That is a delicate thing to be. Then Ramadan came. I love Ramadan. I love the quiet hunger, the way it makes you careful with your words, your eyes, your hands. I love the smell of fried onions and cumin in the late afternoon, the soft light at Maghrib when everything feels forgiven. At my old house, neighbors would bring plates to the door, samosas from Parveen, fruit chaat from Lubna, dates from the mosque. We would line the plates along the counter and laugh at how much food there was. Allah gives more in Ramadan, we would say. At this new apartment, the hallways were silent. The doors closed softly. No one knocked with a warm plate. The first week of Ramadan at Imran's home began with good intentions. I made a small list in my old notebook. Day 1. Simple soup, dates, a salad with lemon. Day 2. Chickpeas, a potato cutlet, some fruit. Day 3. Maybe pakoras, just a few. I showed my list to Samira. I will do the cooking, I said gently. You can rest in the evenings. She looked at me and smiled, but her smile did not reach her eyes. "Auntie, thank you, but it's okay. I have a strict schedule. I prefer to keep the kitchen clean and simple. No frying, please. It makes the apartment smell." I nodded. "Of course," I said. "No frying." I told myself, "Sabr. It is her kitchen. I will help how I can." But every evening, when the Adhan approached, it became clear that help had a new meaning in this house. Samira did not like me near the stove. She did not ask me to chop onions or wash rice. She preferred to order a salad, heat soup from a carton, and place neat bowls in a line. I stood by the counter, a guest in my son's home, my hands looking for work like birds looking for a branch. On the third evening, I was extra tired. I had woken up early for suhoor, prayed, and then read Quran until the sun rose. My fingers were a little numb, and my body felt heavy. The time for iftar was near. The kettle made that quiet sound like it does when water thinks about boiling. The city outside had calmed. I looked at the soup and at my plate, empty and waiting. I took a breath and asked, softly, "Samira, can you please place some soup for me?" When she said, "In this house, everyone serves themselves," it felt like a door closing. It was not the words alone. It was the way she stood, the way she claimed the room with her shoulders. She was not shouting. She was not rude in the way people write stories about bad daughters-in-law. She was simply cold. That coldness, more than anything, shook me. I am old, yes, but I am still a person. I am his mother. After we ate, and I forced the tears back, I cleaned the cups. The sponge was rough. My ring clicked against the glass. Samira wiped the counter with quick movements, then folded the cloth in a perfect square. Imran took his plate to the sink, left it there, and went to the balcony to take a call. The city lights were a scatter of stars under him. I wanted to go to him and say, "Imran, did you see me? Did you see that I needed help?" But my feet did not move. I could hear my mother-in-law's voice in my head. "Safiya, dignity is sometimes silence." I kept quiet, but a small crack opened in my heart. The next days were a pattern. Suhoor was simple: dates, a banana, water. I made dua for my family, for Samira, for myself. I asked Allah to give me patience, to cover my faults, to protect my tongue. I tried to learn the new rhythm of their home. I stayed in my room more. I kept my little prayer mat near the window and watched the sun move across the floor. In the afternoons, I read from a worn Quran with a green cover, the one Salim had given me in our first Ramadan after marriage. His handwriting is inside. "To my Safiya, who makes every fast feel easy with her smile." I touch those words sometimes like they are a hand. Salim was a kind man, but life had made him hard in places. He drove a bus for years and learned to sleep even when the world was loud. On Fridays, he would bring sweets for the children. He would sit with me and ask, "What do you want to cook today?" Not because he cared about food so much, but because he knew I liked to plan. Sometimes we fought, like all people do. Once, he forgot our anniversary. I did not speak to him for a day. He came home the next evening with a rose and a silly poem. We laughed until we cried. When he died, the house felt like it had lost its center of gravity. I walked from room to room touching his things as if they could hold me up. After his death, my daughters asked me to live with them. Huda lives in another city with 3 children and a kind husband who works in a shop. Ruqayya lives in a small town where the air is cleaner and the stars are clear. They both said, "Ami, come to us." But I know how daughters' lives are. They have their own homes, their own routines. I did not want to become a weight they carried with a smile. With a son, they say, A mother can stay. They say, a son's home is your last place. Maybe I believed that too much. I tried to build a small world inside their apartment. I kept a notebook in my bedside drawer. In it, I wrote recipes in a simple way, like letters to my future self. If you make lentil soup, remember to add a small tomato for color. If you fry onions, stop when they smell just right, not before. If you make chai, let it boil once, then again. That is where the taste is. Sometimes I wrote dua. Ya Allah, make me grateful. Make me a soft wind in this home, not a storm. Samira and I had small moments of kindness too. One afternoon, I found her crying quietly at the table. She was holding her phone and staring at a message. I put a glass of water beside her. Bismillah, I said. She wiped her eyes quickly. Auntie, it's nothing. I sat down slowly. It is something, I said. She sighed and said, work is hard. I feel like I am always behind. And social media makes everything worse. Everyone is perfect. Online. I am tired. I wanted to touch her hand, but I thought maybe she would pull back. Tired is heavy, I told her. Ramadan is a time to set things down, even for 1 hour. Her lips trembled. I don't know how to rest, she said. I nodded. We can learn, I replied. For a week after that, she was softer. But then the small, cold moments returned. She would make a salad and measure the oil with a spoon and say, we are eating clean. If I put an extra date on my plate, she would say, sugar spikes are not good for you, Auntie. If I placed the spoon near the stove slightly out of line, she would move it. These were small things. They should not matter. But small things, together, can make a room feel like it does not want you. I was careful with my words. When Imran came home late, I did not ask where he had been. I asked, did you pray? He would say, later, Ami, and kiss my forehead. My heart wanted to hold him, ask him to sit and eat with me and tell me about his day like a boy. But he was a man now, with a tired face and shoulders full of thinking. Sometimes he sat beside me and leaned his head back on the couch. Work is pressure, he would say. Everything is money. Everything is deadlines. I would say, this life is a test, Beta. Allah is gentle. He will not forget you. He would smile, the old shy smile, and say, I know. Ami. The third Friday of Ramadan, I took a few coins from my small savings and bought fresh dates from the market downstairs. I chose them carefully, pressing them softly to see if they were tender. I also bought a little tea cake for Zaid. When I came home, Samira looked at the bag and frowned. Auntie, we have a budget. Her voice was not angry, but it was heavy. Dates are expensive here. I apologized and offered to return them, but the shop was far now and my legs were tired. She said, it's fine, but the air between us cooled again. I decided to keep my coins in a tin under my shawl from then on. There was also this. The place where I prayed became smaller. At first, I prayed in the living room, near the window. Then one day, after a conference call, Samira said, Auntie, when you pray there, the camera picks up movement if I forget to turn it off. Could you pray in your room? She was smiling, but her smile was tight. I said, of course, and moved my prayer mat. It is not a sin to pray in a bedroom. But the feeling of being moved, like a piece of furniture, stayed with me. Still, I tried to be thankful. I had a roof, I had food, I had my son's voice in the mornings, I had my grandson's laughter, soft and quick like a bird. I had the Quran in my hands. I told myself, no home is perfect. Every house has dust in the corners. Maybe this was mine. On the day I began this story with the night of the soup, I went to bed with a headache. I lay on my side and looked at the shadow of the curtain on the wall. I thought of Salim. In the early days of our marriage, I had once refused to serve tea to his aunt because I was exhausted from a long day. I had cried later, and his aunt had laughed and said, "Ah, you are human. Drink the tea yourself." We forgave each other. We ate together the next day like nothing had happened. We had softness. Where had that softness gone in this house? I said Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 34 times, as my mother had taught me to do before sleep. I asked Allah to make my heart light. I asked Him to keep my tongue from bitterness. I asked Him to put mercy between me and Samira. I asked Him to hold my son close. Then I closed my eyes and slept like an old tree, still but full of memory. In the morning, I woke before the Adhan, and the city was quiet like a secret. I made tea, sweet and strong. I placed Imran's cup where he always found it. I stood by the window and watched the sky. In the glass, I saw my reflection, a woman with silver hair and soft eyes, a woman who had loved her family for many years. I touched the glass like it was a face. "Ya Allah," I whispered, "do not let me become hard." The days moved, one into another, the little coldness grew, and my hope shrank. I counted the fasts left. I told myself, when Eid comes, maybe our hearts will reset. New clothes, sweet dishes, children laughing. It is hard to stay cold on Eid. But there was a deeper thing happening in the corners, something I did not see yet. There were conversations between closed doors. There were messages I was not meant to hear. There was a plan, like a shadow, that would make the bowl of soup feel small in comparison. The days after the soup felt longer. The apartment was very clean, and my heart was very loud. I kept telling myself to be grateful, to be quiet, to be good. The Adhan still filled the air on time. The kettle still sang. But inside me, something had changed. It was a small change. At first, a thin crack that you can hide with a smile. One morning after suhoor, I went to the kitchen to make tea. A new paper was on the fridge. It was printed and neat, with little boxes. It said, "House Boundaries Ramadan Plan." Samira had made it, I could tell from the careful lines. There were rules like, no heavy cooking, no guests without notice, please wash your own dishes, keep common areas clear. At the bottom, in small letters, it said, let's all respect each other's routines. I stood there with my hand on the counter and read it twice. It was not a knife, but it cut. I whispered, "Insha'Allah," and made tea anyway. I placed Imran's cup by the door like I always did. He came out with his tie in his hand and kissed my head. "Thanks, Ami," he said. His eyes were tired and kind. For a moment, I believed everything could be soft again. Then he saw the paper on the fridge and said, "Good. We needed this." And my hope dropped like a spoon. That afternoon, I tried to call my daughter Huda. I wanted to hear her voice and ask about the children. My phone felt heavy and light at the same time. The screen did not wake. It was old, and sometimes it slept too deeply. I asked Samira, "Can you help me update the phone?" She smiled and took it in her hand. "Of course, Auntie. I'll make it faster. I'll also organize your contacts." She took it to her room. 2 days passed. I did not get the phone back. When I asked again, she said, "There were some issues. I had to reset things. I'll give it back soon." I nodded. "No rush," I said. I did not want to seem suspicious. But that night, when I lay in bed, I felt like a bird with clipped wings. We are small when we cannot call the people we love. In the late afternoon, I went to the balcony for air. The wind was light and warm. Down below, the market stalls were folding, and a man was rolling a carpet like a scroll. The sky was gold. Samira stepped out behind me. She moved a small plant 2 inches to the left. "The light is better here," she said. I smiled. "It looks happy," I replied. She looked at me, and then at the plant again, like she was measuring it. "Auntie," she said, "please don't move things around when I'm on calls. The apartment is my workspace. It distracts me." Her voice was calm. She went back inside, and the door clicked softly behind her. That click stayed in my ears for a long time. A few days later, near Maghrib, the doorbell rang. It was the neighbor from the next floor, a woman with kind eyes and a headscarf like a soft cloud. "Assalamu alaikum," she said. "I'm Parveen. We made too many pakoras." She held a plate wrapped in foil. The smell made tears jump into my eyes. "Wa alaikum assalam," I said. "You have brought Ramadan into our house." She laughed. "Ramadan lives everywhere," she said. I thanked her and placed the plate on the counter. Samira came into the kitchen and stopped. "What is this?" she asked, not touching the plate. "Pakoras from Parveen," I said, trying to sound light. She was kind. Samira looked at the foil. "It's deep fried," she said, as if that were a bad word. "It will stink up the kitchen, and I don't like taking food from people I don't know." "We should be careful," I said. "Of course." "We can eat a few later. I will keep them on the balcony." She nodded and moved the plate with 2 fingers like it might bite. At iftar, she did not touch the pakoras. Imran did not ask. I broke my fast with a date and thought about Parveen's smile. After they went to bed, I went to the balcony and ate 1 pakora with a whisper of salt. It tasted like childhood. The oil was a small sin. The gratitude was a big dua. In the morning, I saw the plate empty in the trash. The foil had not been unwrapped fully. It felt like a small funeral. I tried to add sweetness where I could. I sat with Zaid in the afternoon and taught him Surah Ikhlas. He is 5 and full of spark. He sat cross-legged and tried to say, "Az Samad," and laughed when his tongue slipped. Again, I told him gently, "Listen to the sound." He repeated until the word sat right in his mouth, like a seed in soil. We clapped quietly because Samira was on a call. Zaid rested his head on my knee. "Daddy," he said. "Why do we fast?" I said. "To remember who gives us water." He nodded like he understood. Children understand big things in simple ways. That night, I made a small kurta for Zaid from soft white fabric I had kept. I stitched it by hand with blue thread at the collar. My eyes are not as strong as they used to be, but my fingers remembered the old movements, the way my mother had taught me. I wrapped it in tissue and placed it on Zaid's bed. In the morning, Samira found it. "Auntie," she said, "we already bought his Eid clothes, brand new, matching with Imran." Her smile was thin. "This one is not neat. The stitches show." I felt my face go hot. I said, "It is only love." She said, "Love is enough without clutter." She handed the kurta back to me, folded in a perfect square. I put the kurta in my drawer and closed it. I reminded myself, love is still love, even when it is not worn. But my throat hurt, and my eyes were full. I went to my prayer mat and sat quietly. I did not rush. I let the sadness come like rain. Then I let it pass through me, drop by drop. After a while, I made dua for Samira. I asked Allah to give her ease and softness. I asked him to remove the sharp edges from both of us. Days passed, and the small things kept piling up like shoes at the door. One afternoon, I was making a simple salad for iftar. Tomatoes, cucumber, a little lemon. Samira came in and watched. "Auntie," she said, "we have a certain way we cut. It looks better." She took the knife from my hand and cut tiny cubes, perfect and cold. "Presentation matters," she said. I nodded and moved aside. Later, when the adhan came, I put a spoonful of salt on my tongue. My body needed salt. Samira took the salt shaker and placed it at the other end of the table. "We are cutting down," she said. My mouth watered in a sad way. I began to feel like a shadow in my own life. I started avoiding the living room when Samira worked. I ate quietly. I washed my plate carefully. I placed my prayer mat in my room as she had asked. I tried not to make any sound when I walked at night. I told myself this was patience, that Allah loves the patient. But I also wondered if patience could become a kind of hiding. One evening, as I folded laundry on my bed, a small envelope slipped from Imran's jacket pocket. I had not meant to snoop. I did what I have always done. Empty pockets before washing. The envelope was white and stiff. It had a stamp from a legal office. My name was printed on top, Safiya bint Rahman. My breath caught. I sat down, slowly, and opened it. Inside was a copy of a document. It was a power of attorney, dated 6 months ago, a week after my fall. It said that I had given Imran the right to handle my property. There were many words, long and dry. At the bottom, there was a signature that looked like mine, small and careful. I felt my heart race. I tried to remember that week. My leg had been in pain. I had been dizzy. Imran had brought papers. He had said, "Ami, this is to help me manage your house while you recover." I had trusted my son. I had signed without my glasses, I think. The room had been spinning. I had said Bismillah and signed. There was another paper with it. It was a confirmation of sale. My small house with the jasmine plant had been sold. The price was written. It was a big number to me, but I knew how quickly big numbers become small when they move through banks. The date was last month. The buyer's name was a stranger. At the bottom it said, "Proceeds deposited to account, ending 81. I held the paper and felt like I was falling. I put the envelope back in the jacket and folded it gently. I finished the laundry. I prayed Maghrib. I did not ask anyone any questions that night. My silence felt heavy like a stone in my mouth. The next morning, I made tea and placed Imran's cup by the door. When he came out, I looked at him carefully. He looked the same. He smelled of soap and a little cologne, like always. He said, "Thanks, Ami," and kissed my head. I almost said, "Where is my house?" The words rose in my throat like a bird at the window, but I swallowed them. It was not the time. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe the money was safe somewhere for me. Maybe he was going to tell me after Ramadan. Maybe many things. I did wudu and prayed 2 rakat of need. "Ya Allah," I whispered, "show me what I need to see, and give me the strength to be kind when I see it." That day it rained. The window glass had small rivers on it. The sound was soft and steady, like a heartbeat. I stood by the window and watched the drops slide and join. Zaid came and pressed his little nose to the glass. "It is crying," he said. I laughed and wiped his nose. "The sky washes the city," I told him. He nodded like a small prophet. Samira called him for an online class. He ran off, his socks sliding on the floor. In the evening, Samira had friends coming for iftar. She cleaned the apartment like it was a showroom. Every cushion was fluffed, every spoon shone. She made a beautiful table, white bowls, thin glasses, a row of candles that would never be lit. The food was simple and perfect, like pictures. She looked proud. "Auntie," she said, "can you stay in your room when they arrive? It might be too loud for you. Also, I don't want you to be tired." She smiled like she was caring for me. I felt my face get warm. "Of course," I said. "I will rest." When the doorbell rang and the laughter came in, I sat on my bed with my hands in my lap. Through the thin wall, I could hear their voices light, fast, talking about shows, about diets, about which mosque had the best decor this year. I heard someone ask, "Do you live with your mother-in-law?" Samira said, "Yes, temporarily. It's hard to balance, you know? We have gentle boundaries," they all murmured. I looked at my hands and saw my mother's hands. Old hands that had cooked for many people, hands that had held babies and washed floors and stitched love into clothes. I pressed my fingers together so they would not shake. After iftar, the voices left. The door closed. The apartment went quiet. I stepped out and found a small plate on the counter. It had 2 slices of cucumber, a small fruit, and a piece of bread. A note sat beside it. "For you." I looked at the beautiful plate still shining on the table. I looked at the small plate for me. My cheeks burned. I took the plate to my room and ate slowly, like a child who does not want to finish. The next day, my phone returned. Samira handed it to me at noon. "It's all updated," she said. I opened it and saw that many contacts were gone. Only Imran's number and Samira's number were starred. I looked at Samira. She said, "You had so many duplicates. I cleaned it for you." I nodded. My heart sank. I had Huda's number written on a paper in my Quran. I would enter it again. I would build my little world back, one number at a time. That afternoon, while Samira was on a call, I heard her voice rise. "I can't keep doing everything," she said. "Work, home, a child, and his mother. I am one person. We need a plan." There was a pause. Then her voice again, softer but hard. "After Eid, we should move her to a senior place. A nice one. She will be fine. Old people like routines." My chest went tight. I stood very still. I did not want to make a sound and become proof of my own existence. Imran's voice was low. "She will be hurt," he said. Another pause. "I know it is hard for you. It is hard for me too." Silence. Then Samira. "We have to think of Zaid. We have to think of our marriage. This is not sustainable." The word walked down the hallway like a cold air. Not sustainable. I went back to my room and sat on my prayer mat. I did not cry. I stared at the edge of the mat until the pattern swam. I told my heart, "Sabr." I told my breath, "Stay." I told Allah, "You are still here." That evening, I tried to speak to Imran. After iftar, he stood by the sink, washing a spoon. I stood beside him, so close that I could smell the soap. "Imran," I said, "do you have a moment?" He nodded and kept washing. "Ami, can it be later?" "I have a call," he said, already looking towards the balcony where his phone blinked. I put my hand on his arm. "It is important," I said. He looked at me, and for a moment I saw my little boy. Then the phone rang, and he slipped away like water through fingers. The spoon kept shining in the sink. A day later, a letter came to the door. I signed for it because I was closest. It was addressed to Imran. The sender was a property firm. I held it for a moment. The paper was thick and cool. I placed it on the table. When Imran came home, he opened it quickly. He did not know I was watching from the hallway. He scanned it, and his shoulders dropped with relief. He folded the letter and slid it into a folder labeled House. I saw the edge of my old address. My chest tightened. He went to the bedroom, and I stood there with my hand on the doorframe. That night, I took out the notebook where I write my dua and recipes. I wrote, "Ya Allah, give me wisdom like water." Let me slip around anger. Let me find a path that is kind and strong at the same time. I drew a small jasmine flower next to the dua. My hand trembled a bit. I closed the notebook and placed it under my pillow. I slept lightly, like a bird in a tree when the wind starts to rise. Suhoor became another place of tension. Samira decided to try something she called clean fasting. She said, "Let's not eat suhoor, it's better for weight." I smiled, but inside I felt fear. I am old. My body needs a little suhoor, or my hands shake. The first morning we tried it, I woke anyway, out of habit. The house was dark and quiet. I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of milk. I took a small bite of bread. Samira's voice came softly from the doorway. "Auntie, the smell wakes me. Please don't cook at night." I held the bread and said, "It is only milk. I will be quick." She sighed and turned away. I drank the milk with tears in my eyes, like a child who has been caught stealing. By midday, my head thudded. My knees felt like wet paper. I lay down and pressed a cool cloth to my forehead. I whispered, "Allahumma inni laka sumtu." The day slowly moved. At Asr, my vision blurred a little. I sat up and shook my hands lightly to wake the blood. It was a simple, human weakness. It felt wrong that I had to feel guilty for it. A week before Eid, Samira organized a big iftar for people from the building. She was excited. She made lists and plans. She ordered glass bottles of water that looked like jewelry. She bought tiny napkins with gold edges. She printed place cards with each person's name. I watched from my chair and smiled at her energy. She did have a gift for order, but I also saw how she tightened when things were not perfect. Perfection is a cage, I thought. It looks like safety, but it is a prison. On the day of the iftar, the apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and stress. Samira moved quickly, her steps small and sharp. She wore a pale dress and a scarf pinned perfectly. She looked beautiful. She also looked like a person who could break. In the afternoon, she came to my room. "Auntie," she said, "please rest during the iftar. There will be many people. It might be too much for you." She held the doorknob and smiled. "I'll prepare a small tray for you." I nodded. "As you like," I said. My voice sounded far away to me. An hour before Maghrib, I went to the bathroom to make wudu. The mirror showed my face, thin and soft. I washed my hands and arms. I wiped my head with cool water. I felt peaceful for a moment, like a stone at the bottom of a river. I went back to my room and sat on the bed with my prayer beads. The house buzzed on the other side of the door. Laughter, footsteps, the clink of spoons. I waited for the adhan. And then, the door handle on my room clicked. I looked up. I heard a small sound like metal. I stood and tried to open the door. It did not open. The lock had turned from the outside. My heart began to pound. I knocked gently. "Samira?" I said. "The door is not opening." No answer. The voices outside were happy. The world was bright. My room was a small box. I knocked again. Harder. "Samira?" I called. "Imran?" Still no answer. My throat tightened. I walked to the window and looked down at the city. The sky was orange. The balcony door in the living room must have been open. The air was moving towards it. Sound moves strangely when doors are open. That is what I told myself. Don't panic. Be patient. It's an accident. It must be. The adhan began. It came from far, like a ribbon of sound. My mouth went dry in a new way, not just from fasting, but from fear. I looked around my room. There was no water. There were no dates. My small glass of water on the nightstand was empty. My hands shook. I sat on the bed and tried to breathe. "Bismillah," I whispered. "I break my fast with your grace, Ya Allah." I touched my dry lips to my fingers, like a person tasting air. I heard footsteps pause outside my door. Then they moved away. I heard laughter again. I felt dizzy. I pressed my palm to my chest and counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. I prayed Maghrib sitting on the edge of the bed. My stomach knotted. Tears rolled down my cheeks and touched my lips. They were salty. In that moment, I thought of Hajar in the desert, running between Safa and Marwa for water. I thought, I am not alone. Allah sees. Even here, He feeds me with patience. After a while, the lock turned. The door opened. Samira stood there. She looked perfect. The room behind her was beautiful. "Auntie," she said, "why didn't you call me? I left a tray outside your door." I looked at the floor. There was no tray. She frowned. "Maybe Zaid moved it," she said. Her eyes were flat. "Anyway, come have some soup now." I stood up slowly. My legs trembled. I nodded. "Alhamdulillah," I said. My voice was a thread. I went to the table. The guests had left. The beautiful bowls were half full. The candles had not been lit. Imran stood by the sink. He looked at me, then looked away. "Ammi, did you eat?" he asked. His voice was careful, like a person walking on glass. "I had water," I said. He nodded and washed his hands. He did not meet my eye again. Later that night, when everyone slept, I went to the kitchen to drink water. The moon was soft through the window. On the counter, there was a small envelope. It was open. In it, I saw a card from a care home. Al-Noor Assisted Living, it said. It was glossy, with pictures of smiling older people and a garden. The price was written on a note. A date was circled, 2 days after Eid. My name was on a small, sticky note. For Safia. My knees went weak. I held the counter. I felt my heart beat in my wrists, my throat, my ears. I stood there for a long time. The fridge hummed. A drop of water fell into the sink and made a clean sound. I picked up the card and read it again. I put it back exactly as I found it. I did not want to accuse anyone of something if there was another explanation, but the truth sat heavy in the room. They had made a plan. I was part of it, like an item to be moved. The next morning, I spoke to Zaid while Samira was in the bedroom. "Zaid," I said, "yesterday, was there a tray by my door?" He looked at me with big eyes. He shook his head. "No, Daddy," he said. "Mama said keep the door closed so you can rest. I wanted to come to you, but Mama said no." He swung his small legs and looked guilty. I hugged him. "It's okay," I whispered. "You did nothing wrong." That afternoon, I wanted to talk to Imran. I took courage like a small pill. I stood by the door waiting for him to come home. When he walked in, I said, "Imran, can we sit?" He looked at me and nodded. We sat at the table. The apartment was quiet. Samira was on the balcony with her laptop. The light was soft and kind. I said, "I found some papers with my name. About my house." Imran's face changed. He blinked and took a breath. "Ami," he said, "I was going to tell you after Ramadan. Please trust me. It was necessary. The house was old. It needed repairs. The market was good. We sold it and moved. The money. It is safe." He spoke fast, like a man running downhill. I looked at his hands. They were strong and gentle, the same hands that had held my finger when he was 2. "Where is the money?" I asked. He swallowed. "Part of it paid off some debts. Part is in an investment. Part is for your care," he said. "Debts?" I asked. My voice cracked like a dry branch. He did not answer that part. "Ami," he said, "please understand. This is better for you. You were lonely alone. Here, we can look after you. I stared at the table. The wood grain looked like a river. My heart beat against my skin. You did not ask me, I said. He reached for my hand. You were unwell, he said. You needed me to decide. His words were soft. They cut anyway. I pulled my hand back and put it in my lap. I felt a wave of anger rise, then fall. Anger is hot. It burns the mouth that holds it. I closed my eyes for a moment and tasted patience, bitter and good. Imran, I said quietly. I would have said yes if you had asked. But now my yes was taken. That is different. He looked at the door. He looked at his phone. I have to take a call, he said, and stood. He did not. I sat at the table for a long time after he left. The room felt like a shell, hard on the outside, echoing inside. I thought of Salim. He would have fought. He had that in him, a fire that came out when he smelled injustice. I have a different fire. Mine is slow, like coal. It lasts a long time. I sat with my coal and waited for it to show me what to do. The next day was the 27th night, Laylat al-Qadr, perhaps. The night of power and mercy, a night worth more than 1,000 months. I cleaned myself and wore a simple light scarf. I set my prayer mat with care. I planned to read long, to sit in Allah's light and ask for all the small and big things. I wanted to pray for Samira's peace. I wanted to pray for Imran's courage. I wanted to pray for my house that was not mine anymore. I wanted to pray for my own heart, to be soft and strong, but the day itself was hard. In the morning, Samira told Imran, the care home called, the deposit is due, we should confirm. She did not see me in the hallway, or maybe she did, I could not tell. Imran said, after Eid. His voice was low. They went silent when they saw me. I said, Assalamu alaikum, and walked to my room with calm steps. I sat on the bed with my hands folded. I felt very old and very clear. In the afternoon, a delivery came. The man at the door wore a blue uniform and a cap. For Miss Sophia, he said. He handed me a padded envelope. I signed and thanked him. I went to my room and opened it. Inside was a small notebook I had left with my neighbor Lubna when I moved. She had posted it to my new address. She had written on a note, I found this while cleaning your old house. Thought you would want it. Love, Lubna. My throat closed. It was my recipe book from when I first married. The first page had Salim's messy writing. This house will be full of your food and laughter. I held the notebook and let myself cry. Not loud, not messy, just tears that needed to leave. I pressed the book to my chest. It smelled like old paper and turmeric. I wiped my face and washed my hands. Then I cooked. It was the first real thing I had cooked in weeks. I made lentil soup the way my mother taught me. I chopped an onion finely and sautéed it in a little oil. I added garlic and a small tomato for color. I stirred in the dal, poured water, and let it simmer with cumin and a bay leaf. The kitchen filled with a smell that was older than my house. It was the smell of memory. Samira came in and stopped in the doorway. Auntie, I said, no frying, she said quickly. I smiled. This is not frying, I said. It is a little oil, for taste. She stood there for a moment, her mouth a line, then she turned away. Imran came in behind her. He smelled the soup and closed his eyes for a second. This reminds me of childhood, he said softly. The room swayed. I held the spoon tighter. For a moment, the old life walked through the door and sat down with us. At Maghrib, I set the table simply. Bowls for soup, dates in a small dish, water. Zaid hopped in his chair with joy. Daddy made it, he said. I laughed and kissed his head. The Adhan came, and we broke our fast together. I took a sip of soup, and it tasted like all the homes I have lived in. It tasted like my mother's hands and my father's poor jokes, and my sister's laughter, and Salim's steady love, and Imran's boyish hunger. Samira took one spoon, then stopped. She looked at the spoon like it had betrayed her. She put it down and took a glass of water instead. I pretended not to see. After we ate, I cleared the table. Samira wiped the counter, sharp and fast. Imran went to the balcony for a call. Zaid tugged my hand. Daddy, can we read Quran together? He asked. I nodded. Bring your small mushaf, I said. We sat on the couch and read slowly. He stumbled on a word. I corrected him gently. Samira watched us for a moment. Her face softened. Then her phone rang and her face hardened again. She stepped into the bedroom and closed the door. The night came like a blanket. I spread my prayer mat and began. I read Al-Fatiha like it was the first time. I read the verses that talk about patience and the verses that talk about forgiveness. I cried when I read about mothers and their rights, not from pride but from longing. I asked Allah to forgive me for all the times I was not gentle, for all the times I spoke too quickly, for all the times I thought my way was the only way. I asked him to forgive Samira for her hardness, for the fear that lived under it. I asked him to guide Imran to courage and clarity. I asked him to hold Zaid's heart in his hand and keep it clean. At midnight, I went to the kitchen for water. The apartment was dark. The city outside was soft. On the table, a folder lay open. Papers spread like cards. I saw the card from Al-Noor Assisted Living again. I saw a receipt for the deposit, already paid. I saw my name written under resident. I saw a packing list. Essentials for move-in. Clothes, medicines, Quran, photos. Next to photos, someone had written, "We will make copies." My fingers went cold and stiff. I put my hand over my mouth. I did not want to wake anyone with the sound of my heart breaking. I picked up the receipt and read the date. It was yesterday. They had already paid. The plan was not a plan. It was done. I placed the paper down like it was fragile glass. I could hear a soft snore from Zaid's room. I could hear the elevator humming far away. I could hear my breath steady itself, slow and sure. In that moment, a quiet came over me. It was not the quiet of fear, it was the quiet of decision. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. I thought of my house, now someone else's. I thought of the jasmine plant, perhaps already cut, perhaps already climbing someone's new life. I thought of Salim's handwriting in my Quran. I thought of my daughters. Huda would open her door for me in a second. Ruqayya would make space calmly, with her slow smile. I had not gone to them because I did not want to be a burden. Now I understood something new. It is not a burden to be loved. It is a burden to be unwanted. I took my phone. I had Huda's number written in the front of my Quran. I entered it again carefully. My hands were steady. I wrote, "Assalamu alaikum beta, are you awake?" The phone pinged immediately. "Wa alaikum assalam, Ami. Always for you." I breathed out, a long breath that I had been holding for a month. I typed, "Can I come to you after Eid?" Then I erased those words. I wrote instead, "I need to come sooner." She called. I picked up. The sound of her voice was like warm water on cold hands. "Ami, what happened?" She asked. I wanted to say nothing had happened. I wanted to say I was fine, but my voice came out simple and true. "I am not wanted here," I said. I told her about the care home. I told her a little about the house. I did not pour poison. I did not accuse. I just named the stones in the path. She was quiet, then said, "Ami, come. Now. We will come get you." I felt a piece of my heart lift and sit lighter. I did not pack that night. I prayed more. I thanked Allah for the night of power, for the chance to ask and be heard. I asked Him to make my leaving a mercy and not a war. I asked Him to keep me from cursing my own son in anger. I asked Him to plant forgiveness in me like a seed that would grow later when the soil was ready. Before dawn, I heard Imran in the kitchen. He was filling a glass. I stepped out. He looked at me, surprised. "You are awake," he said. "Yes," I said. My voice was calm. "Imran, I saw the papers, the deposit." He closed his eyes. He put the glass down. "Ammi," he said, "please, don't make this hard." I smiled sadly. "It is already hard," I said, "but not in the way you think." He looked at me, and for the first time, he did not look away. He looked into my eyes like a man stepping to the edge of a cliff. His eyes filled. "I don't know how to do this," he said, in a voice that was not an adult voice and not a child's voice, just a human voice. I felt my anger soften in one place and harden in another. "You ask," I said softly. "You tell the truth. You do not lock doors." He wiped his face with one hand. He swallowed. "I am sorry," he said. The words were small. They did not change the facts, but they hung between us like a thread. I nodded. I touched his arm. "Your sorry is a beginning," I said, "not an end." On the morning of the 27th, after Suhoor, the house was quiet. The air felt heavy, like it does before a storm. I sat by the window and watched the sky turn from gray to pale. The city yawned. My heart felt clear, like glass. I had decided what I would do. I would not wait for Eid. I would not wait for another locked door. I would leave with dignity, with my tasbih in my pocket, with my head high. I packed a small bag. I put my Quran inside, the one with Salim's writing. I put a pair of clothes, my shawl, my prayer mat, my notebook with recipes and du'as. I took the little kurta I had sewn for Zaid. I tied it with a ribbon and placed it in the bag. I did not pack much. I am old. I do not need much. I left my teacup. I left the small plant I had watered. I left the ways in which I had tried to make myself small. At noon, Samira came to my door without knocking. She never knocked, and that fact, suddenly, felt large. "Auntie," she said, "the care home called again. They have a room ready. It is very nice. There is a garden and a nurse on call. You will be safe. We will visit every weekend." She said it like she was offering me a gift, like she was giving me a new dress. I looked at her face. She was tired. She was scared. She was also, I think, convinced that she was doing the right thing. That is a powerful kind of blindness. I stood up slowly. "Samira," I said, "I am leaving today." Her face changed. Calm cracked. "Leaving?" she said. Her voice went high. "Where?" I breathed in and out. "To Huda," I said. "She has room in her heart." The words surprised me. I had not planned to say them like that, but they came and stood in the air between us. Samira blinked. Anger flashed through her eyes, then something else, something like hurt. She said, "You can't just leave. We made plans. We paid." Her voice was sharp. "We did everything for you. You are ungrateful." The word fell like a heavy shoe. Ungrateful. I have been many things in my life. I have been wrong, proud, silly, sad, strong, weak. But I have never been ungrateful. Gratitude is the first thing my mother put in my hands. I felt heat in my face. I closed my eyes for a second and pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth, the way my grandmother taught me to hold back harsh words. I opened my eyes and spoke slowly. "I am grateful that you opened your home. I am grateful that you made space. I am grateful for the food. I am grateful for Zaid's laughter. I am also a human, Samira. I am not a box you can label and move. You locked my door on iftar. Her jaw tightened. I did not, she said quickly. It was a mistake. She looked away when she said it. The truth sat between us like a third person, waiting. Imran came to the doorway. He had heard us. He looked at the bag by my feet. His face crumpled a little. Ami, he said. My name in his mouth was a prayer and a plea. I felt my heart twist. I will go to Huda, I said. It is better. For all of us. He wiped his face again. I will drive you, he said. Samira turned to him shocked. Imran, she said. We decided, he shook his head. We decided many things in silence, he said. His voice was different, new. It had a spine in it. Samira's mouth opened and closed. She looked at me with eyes that were part anger and part fear. If you leave, don't blame me when people talk, she said. They will say I pushed you out. I wanted to say, you did, but I did not. I said, Allah hears what we cannot say. People will say what they like. I do not want to fight you, Samira. I want us to be able to visit each other with clean hearts. She looked at the ground. For a second, I thought I saw a shadow of the girl I first met in a blue dress, nervous and kind. Then it was gone. She lifted her chin and walked away. Imran carried my bag to the door. Zaid ran out of his room and grabbed my shawl. Daddy, where are you going? He asked. His eyes were big and wet. I knelt and held his face in my hands. I'm going to see Khala Huda, I said. I will call you every day. I will see you on Eid, insha'Allah. He threw his arms around my neck. I pressed my nose to his hair and breathed him in, that small, warm smell of childhood. Read Surah Ikhlas for me tonight, I whispered. He nodded hard. At the door, I put on my shoes with slow, steady hands. My fingers did not shake. Imran stood beside me, quiet. Samira stood a few steps back, arms crossed tightly around herself, as if she were cold. I turned to her and said, May Allah put peace in your heart. She did not answer. She did not wish me harm. She did not wish me well. She was a closed door. Imran and I stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut. In the mirrored wall, I saw us. A tall man looking down, an old woman standing small and straight. The elevator hummed. My heart hummed with it. On the ground floor, the lobby smelled of lemon, and the security guard nodded to me. Khala, going out? He said warmly. I smiled. Yes, Beta, I said. The building doors opened, and the air outside touched my face like a blessing. We sat in the car. Imran started the engine. We drove in silence for a few minutes. The city moved around us, busy and blind. At a red light, Imran spoke. Ami, I am sorry about the house, he said. The words fell like stones. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was being a good son. His voice shook. I was weak. I let money become the judge. I let fear lead me. I listened. The light turned green. He did not move. People honked behind us. He pulled forward slowly, as if the car were heavier than before. I said, I raised you to be soft with people and hard with lies. I was not shouting. My voice was calm and tired. You became hard with me and soft with lies. He flinched. I know, he said. I am ashamed. He breathed, then spoke again. Samira's father had debts. We helped. We bought a small share in her cousin's business. It was foolish. I was trying to show her I could provide. I forgot who provided us, all. He put his hand on his chest as if to keep his heart in place. A deep sadness moved through me, not because of the money alone. Money can come and go. It was the secrecy that hurt. It was the decision made in the dark. It was the boy I raised becoming a man who thought control was love. I sat with that sadness and did not let it turn into hatred. Hatred is a disease. It eats the person who carries it. Imran, I said, I forgive you. He turned his face to me quickly, like a thirsty person turning towards water. But, I said, forgiveness is not forgetting. We will build new trust like a small house, brick by brick. It will take time. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I will accept every brick you give me, he said. We drove on. Halfway to Huda's house, the sky grew dark again. It rained, sudden and strong. The wipers beat a steady rhythm. I watched the rain stripes on the window and thought of the locked door. I thought of the empty dish outside my room that never existed. And then, a memory came to me. When Imran was 12, he stole a small toy from a shop. He came home quiet and strange. I found the toy under his bed. I did not shout. I took him by the hand, and we walked back to the shop in the rain. He cried and gave the toy back. The shopkeeper said, "You have a good mother." Imran never stole again. We both were wet and cold that day, but we were warm inside. I wondered if we could go back to that kind of truth. I wanted to believe we could. We reached Huda's neighborhood. It was not shiny. It was simple. The buildings were old but clean. There were children playing football in the street, and an old man watering plants with a hose that leaked at the joints. Huda stood at the door with a scarf around her shoulders. She ran down the steps when she saw us. She kissed my forehead many times. "Alhamdulillah," she said. "Alhamdulillah." Imran stood back, his hands in his pockets, his face wet with rain and guilt. Huda looked at him with respect and a quiet judgment only sisters can carry. "You will come in?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not today," he said. He looked at me. "Ammi," his voice faded. I put my hand on his cheek. His beard was wet. "Go home," I said. "Be kind. Start again. Pray." He nodded like a boy and went back to the car. He stood there for a moment, one hand on the door, and looked at us as if we were a lighthouse. Then he left. Inside Huda's house, it smelled like onions and cumin and a small chaos that felt like love. The children ran around my legs. The kettle hissed. A radio played a soft recitation. I sat on the couch and let the house hold me. Huda brought water and dates and put her hand on my back as I drank. "You are safe," she said. The words entered me like medicine. That night, I spread my prayer mat in a new corner. The window was so close I could touch it. The rain had stopped. The streetlight made a pool of light on the floor. I sat and breathed. I thought of Samira, who had planned and controlled until the plan controlled her. I thought of Imran, who had stood at a red light with a car full of regret. I thought of my small house, now a story with a door I would not open again. And then I thought of Allah. I thought of His promise that with hardship comes ease. I felt the truth of it. The ease was not a cake or a new dress. It was a clean heart. It was a room where I could breathe. It was a night where I could pray without a lock clicking. After tahajjud, I lay down and slept. I dreamed of Jasmine climbing a new wall. I dreamed of a small boy reciting Surah Ikhlas without mistakes. I dreamed of a door that opens both ways. In the morning, I woke to the sound of Huda's children arguing about a spoon. I smiled. The argument was loud and silly. It was life. Huda made parathas with a little ghee and did not apologize for the smell. She put extra yogurt on my plate. "Eat," she said. "You need strength." I took a bite and felt it in my bones. I closed my eyes. "Alhamdulillah," I whispered. At noon, my phone rang. It was Samira. I answered. Her voice was careful and cold. "Are you settled?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Thank you for calling." There was a pause. "People will ask," she said. "They will think I pushed you out." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. For a second, I saw her as a woman, not a role. A woman who was also trying to be enough in a world that asks too much and gives too little. I said, "If people ask me, I will say this. I needed a different kind of home. I will not shame you. I will not lie." Silence. Then she said, "Zaid is asking for you." My heart squeezed. "Tell him I love him," I said. "Tell him to read Surah Ikhlas." She made a small sound like a laugh that did not want to be born. "Okay," she said. "Goodbye." We hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand and made dua for her. It is hard to be a woman in this world. Some of us become hard to survive. Some of us break. Some of us bend and then learn to stand again. That evening, Imran texted me a picture. It was the little kurta I had sewn on Zaid. The stitches showed. It was not neat. It was love. My eyes filled. Imran wrote, he insisted. I smiled and wrote back, "It suits him. It is stitched with duas." All of this would become part of our story, the one that people tell in whispers and with sighs. Some will judge me. Some will judge Samira. Some will say, old people are stubborn. Some will say, young people are selfish. I do not want that. I want to say this. We were all afraid. We were all hungry for safety in Ramadan. We all made mistakes. The night before Eid, I sat with Huda and told her more. I told her about the locked door, about the small plate, about the document. I told her about the moment I put my hand on the car window and saw the city move, and I decided to move with it. She listened and cried and did not interrupt. When I finished, she kissed my head. "Allah raised you with this test," she said. I nodded. I felt like a tree after a storm. A little broken in places, but still standing. My roots in the ground, my branches open to the sky. The powerful thing, the thing I cannot forget, is this. The day Samira refused to serve me soup was not about soup at all. It was about being seen. It was about being somebody's mother in a house where that word had become an object. The true betrayal was not the refusal. It was the decision to make my life a plan without my voice. That is what broke me. That is what also built me again. Because when I saw it clearly, I could choose. I did not choose revenge. I chose a door. I walked through it. That choice, that quiet walk, is the moment that changed everything. It is the moment I carry with me now, like a stone in my pocket, smooth and heavy. When I hold it, I remember. Allah gave me strength I did not know I had. He opened a path for me when I thought there was none. He placed my feet on it. He covered me with His mercy as I walked. The first morning in Huda's home felt like a kind breeze on a hot day. The windows were open. The curtains moved like slow waves. I heard the radio playing a soft recitation and the clink of plates in the kitchen. My body, which had been tense for weeks, began to loosen one small knot at a time. Huda did not ask many questions at breakfast. She put parathas in front of me and a bowl of yogurt with a sprinkle of cumin. "Eat, Ami," she said. "Your strength first, stories later." I nodded and smiled. The food tasted like care. After duhur, I sat with a cup of tea by the window. My hands shook a little as they held the cup, but inside I was steady. Huda's children argued over crayons, then apologized and hugged, then argued again. Life has a sound when it is not pretending. It sounds like this. In the afternoon I called Ruqayya. I had not heard her voice in a long time. She answered with a laugh in her throat. Ami, Alhamdulillah, you called. I told her where I was. She did not say one word of blame or one word of gossip. She only said, come to me too when you can. We will share you. Your bed is ready here, in my room, not in a corner. That evening, before Maghrib, I went with Huda to the mosque. It was a small mosque with a low ceiling and a carpet that had worn roads from many feet. The women's section was bright with soft lights. The imam spoke gently about mercy in families. He said, boundaries without kindness are walls. Kindness without truth is a lie. We need both. I held those words in my hands like a small lamp. I prayed and then sat quietly. A lady next to me gave me a date and a small smile. You look tired, she said. I smiled back. I was locked out of a table once, I said, without meaning to say it. Her eyes filled. Me too, she whispered. We looked at each other, and then at Backling, our prayer mats. We did not need more words. I did not feel alone anymore. The next day, I felt the tiredness of the last month come into my bones. Huda fussed over me like a mother hen. Rest, she said. You look pale. I agreed to see a doctor. He was kind and brisk. He took my blood pressure and checked my sugar. You were fasting without suhoor? He asked, surprised. Do not repeat that. You need a good suhoor at your age. I nodded. I wanted to tell him that sometimes kindness is also medicine. He sent me home with a gentle vitamin and strict advice. Huda made me promise. I promised. On the third day, I asked Huda to take me to my old street. Only for a little while, I said. I want to say goodbye the right way. She held my hand. Okay, Ami, she said. We drove slowly. The city opened her old streets to us. We reached the lane where my house used to breathe like a person. The jasmine plant was gone. The gate was painted a new color, a bright blue that did not belong to me. The window grills had a new pattern. My old step, the one where Salim used to sit and tie his shoes, had a fresh crack through it. My heart ached, but the ache felt clean. A man opened the door, the new owner perhaps. He looked at me with polite curiosity. Assalamu alaikum, I said. I used to live here. I came to make dua for this house. May it bring you ease. His face softened. Wa alaikum assalam, he said. He stepped aside. Would you like to come in? I looked past him. The walls were painted. The kitchen shelf where I kept my spice tin was now a sleek counter. The smell was unfamiliar. I shook my head and smiled. No, thank you. Keep it with peace. He nodded. I stood there a moment longer, memorizing not the changes, but the way the light still fell on the front step at this hour. The light did not belong to anyone. The light belonged to Allah. On the way back, we stopped at a plant shop. I bought a small jasmine sapling in a clay pot. It was fragile and new, its leaves a hopeful green. Huda placed it on her balcony. We will grow it together, she said. I touched the soil and whispered, Bismillah. The wind moved, light and kind. A day later, Imran called. His voice was low and careful. Ami, how are you? He asked. I am better, I said. I am loved here. He was quiet a long time. Then he said, Can we come on Eid? Zaid won't stop asking. I took a breath. My chest felt both heavy and light. Yes, I said. Come after the prayer. We will eat simple food and talk like human beings. That night, I made dua for softness in all our mouths. I asked Allah to protect me from humiliating anyone in my hurt. I asked Him to protect me from being humiliated by my own anger. These duas felt like a new path inside me. The next day, Samira sent a message. It was very short. Assalamu alaikum, are you okay? I replied. Wa alaikum assalam. Yes. She did not write more. I put the phone down and sat with the silence. Not every silence is a weapon. Some silences are bridges still building themselves. Before Eid, Huda and I cooked together. We made sevian, the way my mother taught me. Brown the vermicelli, add milk slowly, a cardamom pod, a few raisins that get fat and sweet in the heat. We fried a few samosas and laughed at how they tried to open in the oil. We used to say the samosa is telling us its secrets, Huda said. We smiled. We set the table with simple plates and a white cloth with tiny embroidered flowers my grandmother had stitched. The room felt ready. On Eid morning, I went to the mosque with Huda. The place was full. Children ran around with henna on their hands. Women wore bright scarves. Men hugged 3 times. After the prayer, the imam reminded us about mothers. He said, Jannah is under their feet. He also reminded us about kindness to spouses. He said, the best of you are those who are best to your families. It was a good balance. I felt the words sit in me without bitterness. I said Alhamdulillah quietly. We returned to find Imran and Zaid at the door. Zaid ran to me and jumped into my arms. He was wearing the little kurta I made. The stitches showed, yes, but they were straight enough. He looked like a small moon in it. Daddy, he shouted. I know Surah Ikhlas by heart now. I kissed his face again and again. I could not stop. Imran stood behind him with a bouquet of white flowers and his old shy smile on his tired face. He said, for you. I took the flowers and smelled them. They smelled clean. Thank you, I said. Come in. Samira was not there. I did not ask. We ate seviyan and samosas. Zaid ate too many raisins and laughed when they stuck to his teeth. Imran asked if he could help in the kitchen. Huda nodded, watching him with an older sister's eye. You can wash, she said. He washed without being told. I watched his back, broad and bowed, and made dua, that Allah would lift what needed lifting in him and leave the weight that builds character. After we ate, Imran and I sat on the balcony. Huda closed the door and gave us space. The jasmine plant's leaves shivered in the light wind. Cars passed below, small and fast. Imran took a deep breath. Ami, I canceled the care home reservation, he said. We lost the deposit. It is okay. Some money is cheaper to lose than our souls. I nodded. He continued, I also canceled the power of attorney. I will not sign for you again. I spoke to a legal advisor. He said we must fix it cleanly. I will help you set up your accounts in your own name only. You will control your money always. I felt my shoulders relax in a way I had not felt in months. Good, I said. That is proper. He swallowed. I also told Samira we will go for counseling. A good imam and a counselor together. I said I will not allow disrespect to my mother or to my wife. I must be fair to both. I have not been fair. He looked at his hands, then at my face. I failed you, he said simply. I touched his hand, old skin on young skin. You took a wrong road, I said. You did not stay lost. Allah guided you back. That is success, he cried. He cried quietly, like men do when they are ashamed and relieved at the same time. I did not speak. I let his tears wash something inside both of us. In the late afternoon, when Zaid napped curled like a cat on Huda's couch, my phone buzzed. It was Samira at the door. Huda looked at me. I nodded. Let her in, I said. My heart beat fast, but not from anger, from seriousness. Some meetings are like prayer. You prepare yourself. Samira entered wearing a plain scarf and holding a small container. She stood in the hallway as if the floor might give way. "Assalamu alaikum," she whispered. "Wa alaikum assalam," I said. She held out the container. "Soup," she said. "Lentil." She tried to smile. "I followed your recipe, the one you wrote with a tomato for color." I took it. It was warm, my eyes pricked with tears, but I blinked. I wanted to respond with my heart, not just my eyes. We sat at the table, the three of us. Huda brought water and then left us alone. The room held us like a breath. Samira spoke first. "I am sorry," she said, each word pulled out of her like a weed with roots. "For many things. For controlling the kitchen like a boarder, for moving your prayer mat, for the phone, for the paper on the fridge, for throwing away Parveen's pakoras, for the plate outside the door." She paused, her face twisted. The next words were slow and heavy. "I locked your door that day. It was me." Silence sat with us at the table and did not move. Imran closed his eyes. I looked at Samira's hands. They were shaking. I thought of the day I had almost dropped the ladle. We are all shaky in different ways. I breathed and then spoke. "Thank you for telling the truth," I said. "Truth makes space for air." She swallowed and kept going. "I was trying to keep order," she said. "I panic when plans change. It has been like this since I was a girl. My mother used to tell me stories of how her mother-in-law broke her, controlled everything, called her lazy, made her cry. I grew up hearing that and I swore I would never be controlled. I made a rule in my head. Kitchens are mine, decisions are mine, weakness is dangerous. I thought boundaries meant hard lines. I forgot boundaries need soft edges." Her voice cracked again. "I was also scared," she said. "Scared of failing, scared of losing Imran, scared of being judged by neighbors, scared of my own cravings, scared of cooking smells because I fight them like a war to stay in a certain shape. I turned my fear into control. I hurt you to feel safe." She put her face in her hands. "I am ashamed." I let the words stand. I did not rush to fill the space. After a long minute, I spoke. "Samira," I said, "I forgive you." She looked up fast, her eyes wide and wet. Not because it was small, it was big. It broke something in me. But I do not want to carry a stone in my chest for the rest of my days. I am old. I want to carry light. Forgiveness is not forgetting. I will not move back now. My heart needs time. We will learn to be a family with space between us. We will visit. We will eat together sometimes. We will love Zaid together. We will try to speak to each other with mercy." She nodded, tears falling. "I will learn," she whispered. "I will learn to be kind and still keep my needs. I will learn to ask instead of control. I will learn to serve sometimes and to be served sometimes. Please be patient with me." I smiled, a tired, true smile. "Sabr is my oldest scarf," I said. "I have worn it a long time." We ate the soup she brought. It tasted sincere and a little too salty. I laughed softly. "Too much salt," I said. "Fear does that. To the hand." She laughed through her tears. "I measured," she said, then caught herself and laughed again. I tried to cook with feeling. After Eid, we built a new rhythm. Every Friday, Imran and Zaid visited for lunch at Huda's home. Sometimes Samira came. Sometimes she sent a dish. Sometimes she sent a message instead of a dish. That too was progress. She started seeing a counselor who helped her name her fears. She told me once, "I learned that control is a shield I hold all the time. My arm is tired." I said, "Put it down. Eat with both hands." I began to sleep deeply again. My dreams were not heavy. I woke with a small joy, the kind that does not shout but hums. I watered the jasmine on the balcony. I watched it stretch and take the air. I whispered to it, "Grow, little one, twist to the light. That is your job. Mine too." I also made practical changes. I went with Huda to the bank and set up my accounts clearly in my name only. I wrote a forminhayam, simple will with a lawyer, fair to all my children. I kept copies of important papers in a small folder and told Huda and Ruqayya exactly where it was. I gave a copy to Imran too, not to shame him, but to keep us all honest and calm. The lawyer, a young man with kind eyes, said, "This is wise." I nodded. Wisdom grows after fire. I called Parveen from the next building and thanked her again for the pakoras. She laughed and said, "Come for tea when you want. My kitchen smells like life." I went once with Huda. We sat on her small balcony and watched the rain. She said, "People think disrespect happens in big fights. Sometimes it is 1,000 small cuts." I said, "Yes, but Allah heals even 1,000 small cuts when we turn to Him." We clinked glasses of tea gently like bells. I also decided to give some sadaqah from my savings, not to punish anyone, not to make a point, but to clean my heart. I paid for a few iftar meals at the mosque for travelers. I bought a Quran stand for the women's section. I donated to a fund for widows. Each time I gave, a little heaviness left my chest. Generosity is a key. It opens a door inside us. One afternoon, Huda's daughter came from school and sat beside me. She is 9 and serious. "Nani," she said, "my teacher says we should speak up if something is unfair. Did you speak up at Imran's house?" I smiled at her honesty. "Not at first," I said. "I tried to keep peace with silence. But there is a time to speak, little one. When we speak with respect and truth, we keep a bigger peace." She nodded and made a small sound of understanding. Children learn from our stories if we tell them gently. A week later, I went with Huda to the Friday khutbah. The Imam spoke about Qadr. He said, "What is written for you will come to you, even if it is under 2 mountains. What is not written for you will not reach you, even if it is between your teeth." I thought of my house. It was not written for me anymore. I thought of my old jasmine plant. It was cut, but the new jasmine on Huda's balcony was written for me. I felt the truth settle like a bird on my shoulder. Imran called me often. He told me small things about his day. He told me when he prayed on time. He told me when he forgot and then made it up. I listened and did not lecture. He began to listen to me too. I told him about the Imam's khutbah. I told him about the jasmine. I told him about a hadith I love. Allah is gentle and loves gentleness in all matters. He said, "I will work on gentleness," and I believed him. Samira and I had our first real laugh together one evening at Huda's house. We were washing dishes after dinner. I put too much soap and the sink filled with bubbles that floated up like ghosts. One bubble landed on her nose and did not pop. We stared at it, then laughed like children. The laugh was a small bridge. We walked over it a little way. I also visited Ruqayya's home for a week. Her town has a quiet sky and a field where children fly kites. I sat under a tree and watched them run, the kites pulling against the string, eager and wild. Ruqayya brought me tea in a clay cup. We spoke about our father, about Salim, about the ways we get strong when life does not ask permission before it changes. At night, we prayed side by side. Our Amin was big and soft in the dark. One day, when I was back at Huda's house, a letter came addressed to me. It was from the new owner of my old home. He wrote, "Dear Auntie Sophia, I found a small tin in a corner of the kitchen shelf when we repainted. It had Old Spice and a photo. I thought they might be yours. Inside the envelope was a picture of me and Salim on our first Eid, standing by the jasmine. We were young, our eyes were bright and a little shy. The spice smelled faintly like cumin and thyme. I sat with the picture a long while, then placed it where the new jasmine could see it. We do not need the old wall to keep the old love. As weeks passed, the hot pain softened into a deep ache that did not rule me. I could look at it and then look away. I could talk about it without shaking. I kept praying for Samira. Some nights I named her in my du'as, before I named myself. I asked Allah to make me a source of ease, not a mirror of hardness. Some nights I asked Allah to forgive me for the times I was not easy to live with. I remembered my younger self, too sure in some moments, too tired in others. I asked Allah to cover me with His mercy, the way I cover myself with my shawl. One afternoon, Samira called. Her voice was different, soft, but not weak. "Auntie," she said, "I had my first counseling session today. The lady asked me to write one page about what I fear most. I wrote, losing control and being judged. Then she asked me to write one page about what I hope for most. I wrote, a home that feels safe even when it is messy. A mother-in-law who sees me as a daughter, not a threat. Me being kind without feeling small. I am telling you this because I want honest love, not perfect reputation." I felt tears on my face. "May Allah give you that, and give me a heart that can accept that," I said. In those weeks, I learned new things about myself. I learned I had tied my sense of safety to a house, to a plant, to a routine. When those left, I thought I had nothing. But Allah showed me that safety is in Him, not in keys or cups. He showed me that I can leave a place without leaving love. He showed me that I can begin again at any age. That is a kind of miracle. I also began something small at Huda's mosque. On Sundays, I gathered a few older women who felt lonely. We sat in a circle after duhur with tea and dates. We called it Quiet Hearts. We read a short hadith. We shared one story each. We did not blame our children. We did not compete in pain. We spoke with softness and listened with care. Sometimes we laughed so much the tea shook in our cups. Sometimes we cried and let the tears dry on our faces without shame. After each meeting, my heart felt washed. One Sunday, a young woman came by accident. She had been waiting for a friend and sat with us for a while. She said, "My mother-in-law lives far away. I am scared for the day she will live with me. I don't know how to balance." I told her, "Balance is not a fixed line. It is a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes she leads. Both of you must not step on the other's toes. And if you do, you say sorry and keep dancing." She laughed, and the fear left her face a little. Imran kept showing up. He sent me a picture of his prayer mat at the office, a corner of a quiet room where he prayed du'ur. He sent me a voice note of Zayd reciting Surah Al-Asr, slow and careful. He sent me a picture of Samira holding a bowl of soup, smiling shyly. He sent me a screenshot of a canceled gym membership they never used, with the note, "We will spend this time as a family instead." Little bricks. The house of trust grows with little bricks. I also did one more thing. I wrote a letter to Samira's mother. I did not blame her. I did not ask for answers. I wrote, "Assalamu alaikum, sister. We are both mothers. We both want safety for our children. Sometimes we pass our fears like heirlooms. I want to pass softness now. Pray for us," she replied, with a short dua and a long silence. Sometimes that is enough. As months turned, the sharp edges of this story became smooth from being held and prayed over. I could finally say, with a clean heart, that I am grateful for what happened, not for the pain, but for the truth inside it, the truth that I needed to move, the truth that Imran needed to grow, the truth that Samira needed to see her own fear, the truth that love is a verb, not a plan, the truth that Allah's plan is bigger than ours and more merciful. Today, when I sit by the window with my tea, I watch the jasmine on Huda's balcony climb the small trellis we placed there. It finds its path with patience. It does not rush. It leans toward the light, then it rests. I have learned to do the same. When the wind is strong, I bend. When the sun is kind, I stretch. When the night comes, I wait and remember that Allah does not sleep. Sometimes I open the old recipe notebook and touch Salim's writing. I can hear his laugh in my head. I can hear my children as little ones. I thank Allah for a life full of simple food and complicated love. I thank Him for taking me out of a house where my heart was shrinking and bringing me to a home where my heart can breathe. He closed a door. He opened a bigger one. I do not hate Samira. I do not hate Imran. I will not let people use my story to poison their homes. If anyone asks me now, I say, we were afraid and we learned. I say, do not lock doors. Do not sell trust. Do not make plans about people without them. I also say, forgive. Not to let others win, but so you do not lose your own soul. I cannot get my old house back. I cannot unbreak that first bowl of soup in my chest, but I can hold Zaid's small hand and teach him to say Bismillah with meaning. I can visit Samira and sit 1 hour in her living room and talk about nothing and still love her. I can hold Imran's face in my hands and bless him when he is tired. I can pray 2 rakat of shukr every morning for a beating heart, working eyes, and a door that opens from both sides. Maybe Allah wanted me to lose everything I thought was holding me, so I could finally find peace in Him. Maybe He wanted me to leave a house so I could rebuild a family. Maybe He wanted me to taste the salt of my own tears so I could taste the sweetness of forgiveness with a clean tongue. I do not know. He knows. That is enough. So if you are listening and your home feels cold, remember this. Patience is not being silent while you are hurt. Patience is standing in truth without turning bitter. Forgiveness is not erasing what happened. Forgiveness is letting Allah be the judge and letting your heart be free. Boundaries are not walls if they are drawn with mercy, and mercy is not weakness. Mercy is strength in a soft voice. On the last night of this story, I stood at the window and watched a light rain fall. The city was quiet. A distant adhan floated in the air like a ribbon. I whispered a prayer for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening, I asked Allah to put ease in your home, softness in your mouth, truth in your spine, and a path under your feet. I asked Him to make us people who serve each other with love, especially in Ramadan, when hearts are tender and doors should be open. Ya Allah, keep my children and their children in your care. Forgive me for my mistakes. Forgive those who hurt me. Forgive those I have hurt. Make our homes places of prayer and laughter, not fear and pride. Make our tables wide enough for everyone who needs a place, especially the ones we find difficult to love. Ameen. Have you ever felt like a guest in your own home? How did you find your voice with kindness? If this story touched your heart, please follow Voices of Fatima, like this video, and share it with someone who needs a gentle reminder today.